and I wasn't hearing it.
All right. I think we've already got about 130 people in the webinar. So good morning, everybody. We're going to give it a few more minutes. We're a little bit early, but we are going to start on time. If you have questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A. We'll do our best to answer as many of them as we can. Paul's going to talk about this partway through, but we are hosting office hours after. So if we don't get your question answered and you can join us for office hours, we'll share the link. And we do answer questions live. We'll go through live examples. If you have specific things that you want us to cover, maybe you have a specific property that you want us to run through. We host office hours every day. We love seeing people there, and we love doing live examples. So just want to plug that. We're going to do our best to get to as many questions as we can. And thank you for those of you that told me you can hear me. But just so you know, you do have that option to join us for office hours afterwards. Paul, we are at the top of the hour. I see we have 153 people. Maybe we give it one more minute, let a couple more people join, and then I think we should probably go ahead and get started.
Cool, sounds good. Welcome, everybody. And we're recording this, so maybe I'll go ahead and get started. I'm watching the count, and it's kind of like watching popcorn in the microwave. Once it starts popping, there's more seconds between pops, you know it's done. But I guess we're still going up, 72. It's about the time I'm about to burn the popcorn, so. Okay, let's get started. And Julie, everybody can see my screen, I'm assuming. Okay, cool.
Yep.
All right, thanks for joining, everybody. We are going to go through a few things. So we're going to talk about the GSE update for about 5 or 10 minutes, just to make sure everybody's on board. You guys probably, most of you already understand what that's about and what you need to do to kind of satisfy that. We're going to go through, kind of talk about appraisers versus tech and AI and AVMs. We're going to talk about how we can solve a lot of this stuff with market analysis in 5 easy steps with TrueTracts. We'll do a couple of live demos. We'll not only do more of an urban environment, but we're going to do a rural one too. I know there's a lot of rural appraisers out there. You guys don't have access to a lot of data, and so it's really hard to figure out these time adjustments. We will show you how you can solve that with the tool. Talk about some additional side benefits, and then we will wrap up and give you some additional info. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Writings on the wall. So this new guidance came out effective March 1st. So we already passed that. But basically the GSEs, they've provided evidence that appraisers are not doing a good job making time adjustments. What's that evidence? On a recent podcast, Danny Wiley from Freddie Mac, he was on the Market Moves podcast, episode 21, if you want to look it up. But he gave some really good info, one of which, one of his points was that 7% of appraisals, only 7% of appraisals had time adjustments. And that number has been fairly consistent for years. So if you think about over the last 5 years, including COVID, all the different fluctuations in the market and everything that's been happening, the idea that only 7% of appraisals had time adjustments is really disappointing and kind of sad. Lyle Radke from Fannie Mae has mentioned similar metrics. They were a little bit different, but very similar. And so you have these two top GSEs out there telling us, basically, we're not doing a good job with time adjustments. And so the other point that they've made, though, is when we do make a time adjustment, their study indicated that we are under adjusting by a substantial margin. So if you see the chart on the left, you can see the actual adjustment made in green. And then you can see what their models predicted that adjustment should have been. And so making a time adjustment 7% of the time, and when we do make it, we underdo it. And there's reasons for that. And I get it. I've been there. I've been appraising for 20 years. I understand the struggles, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But we also have a solution. So because of these issues, they want us to show our work. They've identified a problem. They're in the business of risk management. And if we're not making time adjustments when potentially we should be, that's a risk issue. And so they're saying now, they're not saying analyze your market. This is new. We've always supposed to have done that. But they're saying, like, based on the results, they didn't think we were doing a good job of it. So they're saying, show your work. And they're providing some guidance as to like what they want. So let's talk about what that guidance is. So a couple of key points. 1-unit housing trends, top of page 1. They say that the trend indicated in the appraisal report must reflect the overall movement of the market based on a minimum 12 months of data. So that means when you're checking the box on page 1 for property values increasing, stable, or declining, that should be based on a minimum amount of data, 12 months of data. That's easy. That makes our job really easy. You look at what it was 12 months ago. Where's that trend line? You look at it today. If it's higher today, that's an increasing market. If it's lower today, that's a decreasing market. It's a really easy decision and reconciliation for us to do. They also say the trends must be reflective of those properties deemed to be competitive to the property being appraised. They don't want you doing a 2-mile radius and saying, give me all those properties. What's the trend? They want you applying some filters and trying to grab properties that are competitive with the subject. They realize, and I think most of us understand, that the $300,000 market is probably behaving differently than the $1.5 million market. And so we want to understand the trend for the specific subject property that we're appraising. Second point that they make is that time adjustments. Time adjustments is an adjustment made to a comparable sale. Let's see here, hang on. An adjustment made to a comparable sale is based on market changes between the contract date of the comparable sale and the effective date of the appraisal. This is important. This time adjustment may be different than the overall property value trend. So what we just went over first was back here. The overall property trend is based on a minimum 12 months of data. It's where was the trend line then? Where is it as of the effective date? Adjustments to comps is something different. They want you to analyze the contract date of that comp to the effective date of the appraisal. And so why would that be different? I think most of you guys have probably seen this chart, but in this situation, if we see the trend line 12 months ago, it's lower than it was today. Box on page 1, that's increasing. The overall trend is increasing. However, comp 2, which went under contract up here, that would require a negative time adjustment. The comp down here, positive. This comp right here, comp 4, that's stable. Now, in using TrueTracts on hundreds, if not thousands of sessions already, we do office hours every day for an hour. We've been doing it for about 30 days now. That's a lot of sessions I've run. I have yet to see this chart. It's not common. When you provide an example, sometimes going to an extreme is the best way to illustrate that example. This is not that common when using TrueTracts. When you use a small data set and you use Excel and you use a polynomial 4, and I won't get into the details, you may see this, and that's tough. That's tough to reconcile. But this is an example of what could happen. What you end up seeing when you're really looking at an overall trend and you have enough data is you'll see some curves in the data a little bit. You're not going to see this up, down, up, down, up, down. So overall takeaway, what's the takeaway? GSEs are pointing out a deficiency in appraisals. They're trying to provide us some guidance and some clarity so that we do a better job. It's easier for us to do because they're trying to provide that guidance and that clarity. But they want to start seeing more time adjustments. I think that's the bottom line. And I don't want you to take that as saying make time adjustments regardless. That's not what I'm saying. But I think what they're saying is markets fluctuate more than we're leading on with our time adjustments. They're making it clear that they expect more reports with those time adjustments, and they want those to accurately reflect the market. Sometimes that may be nonlinear, not always. If the market is behaving in a linear fashion and you look at the data points on the chart and it looks like if you drew a straight line, that would identify the trend, then linear adjustments are completely justified. If you see something like this chart here, you probably don't want to just do a linear time adjustment because that's not reflective of what's truly happening in the market. So they're placing this emphasis on show your work. We've already talked about it. We were always supposed to analyze this market and make time adjustments when warranted. That's not new. All they're saying is they've identified this as an issue. They want to improve it. They want it to be a focus going forward. This is for the NFL fans that are listening, football fans. This is analogous to the NFL 1 or 2 key points of emphasis early in the season. Every year they identify things in the offseason they want to clear up. They put these points of emphasis out early. And then there's a surge of flags and penalties before the players figure out how to adjust. A couple years ago, it was illegal contact. So it was never okay to chuck a receiver more than 5 yards down the field, 5 yards down the field. But they realized defenses were getting away with too much. They were getting a little too physical, so they wanted to make it a point of emphasis and clean that up. Similarly, that's what the GSEs are doing. They've identified that appraisers aren't making time adjustments when appropriate. And when we do, we're adjusting at a lower rate than their models indicate. So we were always supposed to do this and make time adjustments when appropriate, but based on the stats, we weren't. Therefore, new guidance, show your work mandate. So there's more than likely going to be a surge in revisions. We've seen a little bit of that already. We've had appraisers send us in revision requests. But then we're just going to learn how to use tools like TrueTracts and others. You don't have to use TrueTracts. I'm not saying that the only solution to this problem is TrueTracts. I will say it's the best solution, and I believe that wholeheartedly, but you can use regression. You can use Data Master. You can use some of these other tools out there, but you got to use something. You got to support it. And I've had appraisers out there say, well, it doesn't say you have to provide a chart. And I would just say, well, why wouldn't you? If you're going to do the work anyway, and you need to look at a chart to figure out what that trend is, why not just show them? That's the picture's worth 1,000 words. I would rather provide the picture than type 1,000 words. So I think once we adapt and we start using these tools, I think it's going to elevate the credibility of the entire industry. I want to get that number up. Instead of 7%, I hope a year from now they go, you know what, guys, you guys did a great job. You guys learned to do time adjustments better. And that number is significantly higher and it reflects the market. Would love to see that for the whole industry. Side note, I think the GSEs have also signaled that the idea of show your work for feature adjustments may be next. I don't know this. I don't have insider knowledge. I go to the conferences. I listen to Fannie and Freddie when they speak. I attend the webinars. They've been highlighting similar things. They've been highlighting the time adjustment problems, but they're highlighting similar things with feature adjustment deficiencies. So if that sounds familiar, I believe they'll follow the same playbook, which is they identify an issue, they provide evidence of why they think that's an issue, they're going to issue guidance, and then potentially the show your work mandate. So just a little peek into what I think is my crystal ball looking into the future. Take a quick drink. Okay. Technology will never replace great appraisers, but great appraisers who embrace technology will replace those who don't. I know there's a growing fear in our profession that technology, AI, AVMs, machine learning is going to start to replace appraisers in appraisal volume. It's already started to a small degree with the GSEs using their proprietary analytics algorithm to issue appraisal waivers. They want things faster, they want things cheaper, they want more robust analysis. The truth as I see it, the more we resist using technology and tools that allow us to efficiently and credibly analyze our market, the more we're going to add fuel to the fire that maybe alternatives should be explored. So they want it faster, cheaper, deeper analysis. What's the solution? I don't think it's technology or appraisers. I think that's a false dichotomy. I think it's technology and appraisers. I think we have to embrace it. So let's utilize technology for its highest and best use. As it relates to market analysis, let's use it to process massive data sets and complete thousands of calculations in seconds to provide us a statistical foundation for time adjustments. Let's use it to identify and provide intuitive visual evidence of market trends for us to analyze and the client to understand. Then as the appraiser, we just step in, we guide the process, including the defining of the market area boundaries, the applying of the filters to ensure credible and reasonable results. Then we refine and reconcile that analysis using our years of local market experience and knowledge. As it pertains to TrueTracts, if we had to manually gather and curate the data set, do all the calculations necessary to create the heat map, then adjust hundreds of sales, plot them on a chart, fit a trend line, type the commentary, it would take us weeks to complete one assignment. We'd have to charge $2,000 an appraisal. It's not financially feasible. And that's why we need to embrace technology, because it can help us do things both faster and better than we can without it. Important to note both words, faster and better without it. If it's just better analysis, but it takes you guys 2 times the time to complete it, that's not great. And for many, that's going to be a non-starter because you're just going to choose the solution that's good enough and is faster. If it's really fast and efficient, but the results aren't that credible, that doesn't work either. So I feel like that's why we built TrueTracts. I feel like that's why so many people have loved TrueTracts and the feedback we're getting. It empowers you to complete faster, more accurate, and defensible market analysis. It enables by far the most in-depth market analysis of any tool on the market, and it can be done in just minutes. It doesn't replace appraisers, it makes us stronger. Okay, I'm gonna get off my soapbox and get into some solutions. I hope that the message that I just gave came across as it was meant to. I truly believe this is where the profession's going, and I want to try and reach and motivate as many appraisers out there to up our game, elevate our analysis. If we do this as a collective group, we up the entire game and credibility of the entire industry. Let's dive into TrueTracts. Okay, so what is TrueTracts? It utilizes advanced analytics, machine learning to elevate how we define and analyze our markets. It delivers accurate, data-driven insights, visualized through intuitive heat maps and charts, enabling appraisers to confidently reconcile trends and time adjustments that truly reflect current market conditions. Remember, that's what the whole reason we're doing this, the why. We want to get to the truth. We want to figure out what is really going on in the market so we can solve that, make our time adjustments, and make our analysis more credible. This can be done in 5 easy steps. So I'm going to walk you through in more detail, but just high level. You enter in some stuff about the subject, the effective date, the form type. You define your subject submarket. You apply some filters. You define the market area, and then you sit back while the tool automatically is going to gather 2 to 5 times more competing properties to analyze. You review the market analysis charts, the dynamic commentary. You make trend decisions. Then you export. You export the heat map, the charts, the commentary, the 1004MC data directly into Total if you have it. If you don't have Total, we create PDFs for you. You can put those in your report. Okay, so this is me completing an analysis in less than 3 minutes. I'm going to walk you through it. I just entered in some subject features. I am drawing my market area boundaries. I am applying filters to make sure I'm grabbing competing properties. It's loading a heat map. I'm refining my market area based on that data, making data-driven decisions to define my market and grab my data set. I'm adding in competing properties. I'm defining my overall market area to limit the data that's coming in. I'm analyzing the sale price trend chart. I'm looking at different year periods. I'm grading my time adjustments. I'm making some decisions. And if you see the timer in the bottom left, that, obviously this was sped up. I don't remember how much, but you guys didn't want to watch a 3-minute video. 2 minutes and 49 seconds is how long it took me to do that analysis. Now, every assignment's not going to be 2 minutes and 49 seconds. Your first 10 assignments are certainly not going to be 2 minutes and 49 seconds. I show that only to show you, before we get into the details here, that this can be done very quickly and very efficiently. Okay, so we're going to do a couple of demos here. So I need to switch screens. Let's see. What's that demo? Move this over here. Here. Okay, so first demo I'm going to do, I'm going to do a property in Phoenix. This will be the urban example, and then we'll get into the other one. I'm just going to enter in the subject address. It's detached. I'm going to pick the form type that I want to export to. I need to enter in some features here. Story. Save and classify. Okay. What does the tool have access to? It has access to all of the sales and listings, expireds, canceled in your market. And so initially what it's going to do is it's going to expand out to find 6,000 home sales in the last 5 years. It's going to then group those into these different clusters using machine learning. It's going to provide us what is the highest probability cluster. We click on that cluster, it's going to show us those properties. This is just a rough draft. This is a guide on how we're going to start to define our neighborhood. So it might also belong to 6. Maybe I highlight those to see where those are. And I use this to click this plus, and I just want to define my initial boundaries. So maybe I think it's something like this. Now I need to apply some filters because, as we know, Fannie and Freddie do not want us just looking at all properties. they want us to look at properties that are competitive with the subject. Hang on, that was wrong. Let's do 1,000 to 2,000. You can see here, this is the histogram of properties in those boundaries. So you can kind of see where the subject lies with the red X. And so I'm applying some filters. It updates live as you apply those filters. And then when we apply a raw sale price filter, we do not, if we think this property is worth 400, we don't apply a 350 to 450. That is not what we're supposed to do. We're not supposed to be searching by price. But what we want to do is we want to remove the outliers at the low and the high end. So in this case, I'm going to remove the low end and the high end. And as a check, a general rule, you can remove that. We're at 455. When I remove that, we end up, so I removed 12 properties. I removed 3% of the sales. General guide, try not to remove more than 10% of the sales. We're just trying to get rid of the outliers. Now I create a heat map. Now this is really cool. This is where the magic starts to happen. It is training a statistical model on all of the properties located within those boundaries that lie within the filters we just applied. It's taking what it learned from that model, the relationship between features and sale price. It's now using that to predict the sale price of every sale outside of those boundaries. I think that's super powerful to understand. Again, training a model, it's learning from all the properties inside this group here. It's then taking what it learned and it's trying to predict the sale price of each of the properties outside of these boundaries. When it predicts the sale price within 3%, it becomes a dark green area. When it's 3 to 6%, it becomes a light green area. When it's more than 6%, it becomes red or blue. What does this red area mean? It means that for these dots in this group, it tried to predict their sale price. It said, you know what, based on what I learned from this other model, I think the sale price is going to be 500,000. If it turns out that that sale price was 600,000, that's a 20% different. So it's going to color that red. Every one of these dots, it knows the sale price, but it pretends it doesn't, and it tries to predict it. And then when it predicts that sale price, another nuanced thing to understand here is it's controlling for all the features it knows about. GLA, bed, bath, lot size, basement, all of those things it's controlling for. And what it's left over is mostly location, a little bit potentially of quality and condition, but it's mostly location. And so this tells me I don't want to grab comps from here. And if I do, I'm probably going to need to apply a location adjustment. So let's come back here. We're not done. We typically want to iterate on this first one because now what did we just learn? It tries to predict the sales outside. It also tries to predict the sales. It applies itself on itself to predict these sales. And what it learned is these are selling for more here and these are selling for less. We want this model to be trained on similar properties. And so what I'm going to do now is just iterate on that. I'm going to hover over this SS, edit subject boundaries. And I'm going to maybe expand to the west because the tool has learned that over there, properties are fairly similar as well. And I'm just going to retrain the model. It now has a new data set. It's going to retrain that model. It's going to retry to predict those sale prices. And it'll show me a new heat map. Typically, you only want to iterate once or twice. That's all you need to do. And sure enough, in this example, I now have mostly green inside of my model. That means it trained it on similar properties, which makes it better at predicting these other markets out here. As I look down here, well, I won't go into that right now. So I'm gonna remove these black properties so we can see better. So you can see here that, 90% of my appraisals I do, my comps are gonna come from this area, right? I'm gonna hope. If I'm doing something more complex, I gotta go somewhere else. What this is telling me is you don't wanna go south, and you don't want to go west. But down here, there's a whole pocket that you might want to look at. And then from a data perspective, typically, what's the problem that you guys are encountering with market analysis, market conditions adjustments? It's hard because you don't have enough data. We've determined that this is a really good way to get more data. So the CS cluster has been automatically generated for us. I'm toggling it on and off. What is it? What are these properties in dark green? These are areas where the model has determined that these areas are super similar to the subject. They have properties that have similar characteristics that are selling for similar prices. And after controlling for all the other features, There's no location adjustment warranted. And so let's include these in our analysis. And rather than you have to go find where these are, we found those for you with the model. And so you have those available to you. So let's now go to market analysis. So this is where we're going to get our charts. We're going to run a GAM model. GAM, by the way, stands for Generalized Additive Model. It's a form of regression for appraisal problems like this. It is the absolute best form of regression. We can get into that later. But okay, so we have our sale price trends. What's happening here? Number one is we're looking at a 5-year trend. We can filter that, but I want to talk about what this trend represents and what's going on here. So we have adjusted sale prices are being plotted on this line. We're taking a data set and we're not just relying on raw sale prices. We're trying to use the GAM model to adjust those first for feature differences and then plot them on the line. We're then running this trend line, this GAM trend line. We're fitting it through the data, which finds the optimal path to basically show us what the behavior of the market is. And then we're showing this green area. So let me zoom into 1 year. This green, this is something that I feel is missing from every other tool on the market that I've seen. This is a measure of certainty or uncertainty. It tells you how certain how confident you should be in what this trend line is. It's called the 90% credible interval. That's a statistical term you don't need to remember. What you do need to remember is the wider this green area is, the less certain the model is. This green area is a function of two things: the number of dots, the amount of data that we have, and the distribution of that data. So if I only had 12 sales over the last year, but they were all plotted right in a straight line, this model would be really certain as to what the trend is. But if I have 12 dots and they're all over the place, you're going to see a lot more uncertainty. So there's two things going on there. But what do we have? We have something in our back pocket here. We have the CS. Remember what the CS is? That's all those other green properties outside of our subject submarket. We can turn those on and see what that does to our analysis. This is super helpful in most areas where you don't have a lot of sales. Now, all of a sudden, we went from, let me turn it back off. We went from 59 home sales over the last 12 months to 118. And so we've doubled our data set, and I feel much more confident about the trend line. What the other things we're doing, we're including pendings. You can see these pendings here. These are the most recent indicators of what's happening in the market. You can toggle those on and off if you want to use those. We found in our testing that these are super helpful for locking in what that most recent trend is. We're also adjusting those pendings. So you might say, how do you use a pending? You don't know what it's going to sell for. But we have a chart down here that shows the sale to final list price ratio. This is whatever the average last list price to what do those properties sell for. In this market, it's 99.6%, which means that we're only discounting those pendings by 0.4% before we plot those on the line. We have all of these other charts. Oh, let's go to the time adjustment. So we write the commentary for you. You get to control this. This is your final decision on what the market's doing. And anything more than a 2% difference, we're going to reconcile that as increasing or decreasing if it's more than 2% on the downside. But you have the ability to change this. If you say, you know what, 2.2% year over year is relatively stable, you can change that. It will change this to blue, and it changes the commentary that goes in your report. We also have the ability to add commentary. So if you want to add additional commentary, you are certainly welcome to. We have these little eyes throughout the tool everywhere. So you can hover over these eyes to understand what's going on in that section. This gives you suggested commentary, all kinds of good information. We also have time adjustments. So nonlinear time adjustments. In this market, this is up 2.2% year over year. However, if we look at October and November, it's pretty flat. And so if we look at that, that's right here. Basically what this trend line is, it's taking what this data point on the red line is here, which is 498. It's comparing that to what it is today, which is 509. And so it's saying that's up 2.2%. However, just like the Fannie example, if you have a comp that went under contract in November, you can either make a 0.1% adjustment or a 0% adjustment because the adjustment's negligible. But we make it simple. You just click on that, it copies that to your clipboard, you go into Total or your software, you paste it where you make the time adjustment, And most of the softwares will just calculate that for you automatically. We also have all the other trends. So we have the supply, we have the days on market. All of these are checking a box for you on page 1. So your determination here increasing, your determination here of 3.3 months. If you determine that to be in shortage, again, you can hover here to see how we're determining those. But if you say that that's imbalance, just change it to imbalance, and that's what the box will check for you. Market time, this is less than 90 days. So on the page 1, it's going to check that box. Let's scroll all the way down here, and you can see those boxes have been checked for you. We've filled out the housing, the high, low, the predominant. We have some additional information here on what each of these sections represent to help you. This is just guidance. Top of page 2 is filled out for you. We have some notes about that. 1004MC has been filled out for you. You just need to go through and check your boxes. We have additional suggested commentary. I think this is super important to spend just 2 minutes on. When you have a client that requires the 1004MC to be completed, we know that Fannie and Freddie, they don't require that anymore. They realize it's a flawed form. We have a lot of questions on this. Why does your analysis differ from the 1004MC analysis? 1004MC is, nicest way I could say it is it's garbage. Like, it's just not good. You're siloing a 6-month period here, and you're saying, what's the median? Then you're siloing a different period, 3 months and 3 months, and you're going, give me a trend. That's ridiculous. The analysis we're doing that you could do in any of the other tools is far superior to what this is. So what is this commentary about? It's about saying we satisfied the assignment conditions. We did this as you requested. We did it as Fannie and Freddie had laid it out. We did it as the form says it's supposed to be done. However, we completed and relied upon a much more robust market analysis with supporting charts and commentary, which has been attached to the report. These charts and analysis were relied upon to reconcile the housing trends on page 1 and the time adjustments. As a result, the trends may differ from the 1004MC. The market analysis charts and commentary provide the primary basis for conclusions rather than the 1004MC. Aligning this 1004MC with page 1 for consistency could result in a misleading appraisal. I've been using a version of this commentary in my reports for probably 6 years now, and it prevents revisions. It explains to them, look, we did the 1004MC, but we did a much better analysis. That's what we relied upon. Please don't ask me why there's a difference between the 1004MC and my superior analysis. So I recommend you guys putting this into your report. Then you're going to hit export. When you export, we do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. There's a lot going on in this tool, and we want to help you explain that to the underwriter. So we do that for you here. We talk about the process that you went through, this data-driven approach, how you've eliminated any potential for arbitrary bias. We show the filters that you applied. We talk about how you trained the model. We trained a statistical model. We then show the heat map. This is dynamic. You move this around and get it exactly how you want before you put it in your report, because it's going to screenshot this into the PDF. We even explain all of the different things in a legend, what the green, what the light green, the blue, the red mean. All of this is explained for you. The market analysis and the time adjustments coming up. We talk how we fit a nonlinear curve through the data. We tell the underwriter, in line with the Fannie Mae selling guide, this is how we're doing this. We're doing this the way that we're supposed to do this. Don't send me revisions. Also in line with the Fannie Mae selling guide, the time adjustments made to the comps may differ from the overall trend. Again, this is not just an efficiency tool. It's not just a robust analytical tool. It's a revision prevention tool. At least that's what we're hoping for. Then we put your charts in. You get to select which charts go into the report. We put your commentary. We put the time adjustments that you made to the comps. All of that goes in. You hit export. I won't go through the export process right now. Maybe I'll do one real quick. When we export, if you're using Total, we're going to create a TDCX file for you. All you're going to do is click on that file. For those of you who use Spark, it's similar to that. You click on that file and it goes, where do you want to import this into Total? And it will pull all this information in. It's going to put a PDF in your report itself, showing you the charts, the commentary, and all that. It's also going to put the 1004MC stuff into your work file. So I'll show you what that looks like real quick. So this is just going to go into your work file. So you have that documented. It's going to do a farm list. This was a much requested thing that we just released, I think last week. This will show all of the properties that are included of each of those clusters so that you have that for your work file. And then we also have this white paper. I do recommend you guys read this. We wrote this for you guys. It's 10 pages, but it goes through all of the details. USPAP Advisory Opinion 37, it says you don't need to know all the intricacies of a tool. You don't need to recreate the statistical formulae and the mathematics, but you do need to understand it from a high level. And you do need to deem that it's credible. When you get done reading this, we talk about what is GAM, why are we using it, why it's better. I do think you should read this at least once. Okay, that is it for that one. Let's move to the the rural example, because I know there's a ton of people who need help getting data for rural properties or even just complex urban, suburban properties. So the example I'm going to do, sorry, I'm terrible at typing and talking at the same time. Example I'm going to do is in Warren, Mass. It's in Western Massachusetts. It is in a town of like 5,000 or less people. It's 20 miles to the nearest town, and the nearest town on the east and the west has about 100 to 150,000 people. It's not a major metro. Let's enter in some. This is not even a common property for the area. 1.27 acres. 420-1962. Garage, save and classify. Okay, so let's get the lay of the land here. You can see it's expanded out to include 6,000 home sales. When we did the Phoenix example, it expanded about this far to get 6,000 home sales. In this example, as you can see, let's kind of zoom in here and look at the satellite view. You can see there's not a lot going on here. As we zoom out, we got the town of Warren, which has like 5,000 people in it. And then the next most populated town is Springfield over here. And then Worcester, I don't know how to say that, over there. What's that?
It's Worcester, sorry.
Oh, Worcester.
I didn't realize I was unmuted. It's Worcester, yeah.
What, I don't even know how you get to Worcester. I believe you, but I don't even understand what the grammar, the logic is there.
I only know because I know somebody who lives there. That's the
All right. I'm going to look it up after this and find out what the origin of that word is, because that doesn't make any sense in the English language. But okay, let's push forward. Thank you, Julie. Okay, so I have a problem, right? I don't have a lot of data. Let's go back here. And so it thinks it belongs to 10, but it's only 30% confident of that. So I click on 10 and I go, uh-oh, these are all over the place, not good. And then I go to 12, or let's say 8 is the next one. I click on that. Those are all over here. I go to 12, where are those at? Those are all over the place. So what do? I start big. That's what I do. Start big, get some big boundaries here, and just kind of get the party started and let the heat map guide us from there. So we're going to apply some filters just like we did to the other one. Let's zoom in down here and see what's going on. Okay, so the subject's on an acre. Let's do 20,000. 220. Okay. We'll do 5, 1 to 3. Getting raw sale price, we're just getting rid of the outliers on the low end and the high end. So maybe I do 100, 400. You can always back that out and say we got 292. I knocked it down 20, so a little less than 10%. I didn't explain this before, and I should have. This is the universe of sales in the last 5 years in those boundaries that I just drew. This is the universe that's left over after I've applied filters. So we've filtered out 83.6% of properties, and this is what we're left with. We're going to create the heat map. Again, it's going to train a statistical model on all of those properties that are located within those boundaries that are also located within the filters we applied. It's going to try and learn the relationship between the features and the sale price. It's going to use what it learned to now try to predict the sale price of all of the properties outside of the boundaries and inside of the boundaries. It's then going to show us the results of that via colors. So when we zoom out here, we have Worcester over here and we have Springfield over here. We're kind of in no man's land in the middle, which you would expect, right? If you're 30 minutes outside a metro, does it matter if you're 30 minutes or 40 minutes or 50 minutes? A lot of times, no. When you're in rural is rural and there's not a lot of change, but there's clearly something going on here, right? There is I should also said this before, the tool does not know a lot of things, including neighborhood, school district, census tract, zip code, city limits, county limits. Doesn't know any of those lines. That's intentional. We can add those. We didn't want to. We want this to be data driven. We want to remove any perception of arbitrary bias from appraisers. This protects you. If we don't know a school district or a city limits boundary, you can't be accused of redlining. You are letting the data drive your decisions. And so what do I do from here? I want to refine this because I don't want the red mixed in my data set that I'm training the model on, because it's going to be more accurate if I do that. So I'm going to iterate on my subject submarket boundaries, simply going to draw that line based on the data, not based on my years of experience or what my mentor taught me. Hit the update the heat map. Again, it's going to retrain the model from scratch. It's starting anew with this new data set. And it's going, what is the relationship between these features and sale price? How does a change in those features affect sale price? And what it learns, it's going to then redraw this heat map or recolor it. And so I feel really good about this. So what is this telling us? Let's zoom in a little bit. These black dots, these are all the sales that lie within the filters that I applied from the last 5 years. You can see those are the same black dots out here. And so I have now 364 sales in the last 5 years. That's going to help me do a trend, but I also have a bunch of other sales, 337 in the competing submarket. Now, you guys may wonder, what about the 1004MC? I have to define my neighborhood because of the 1004MC is only supposed to be filled out with the neighborhood. I hover over the end by default. Now, this is getting a little pro tip. By the way, you could stop here, move on, do the charts, and you're done. If you want to go the extra mile, you can define a neighborhood separately. But keep in mind, subject submarket, competing submarket, those are analytical clusters. Those are things we want to analyze that are going to help us get to the truth. What's going on in the market? What is the truth of that? This neighborhood cluster, this is just a compliance cluster. This is just, I got to fill out the 1004MC. I got to limit the data that goes into that. We give you the ability to do that. So if I were to say, you know what, this is my neighborhood, you have the ability to draw that. Instead of a black and gold line, that line becomes black now because now it's just the SS. And now the gold is your neighborhood. And the data in your 1004MC will only be filled out using inside this gold area. So now we move on to market analysis. I want to see if something will work real quick. I don't think we're going to have enough sales, but I'm going to try. What I'm trying to do is, there's only been, so this is where appraisers get into trouble in a rural market. If I just look at that neighborhood, which is what you typically have, there were only 5 sales in the last year. There were 47 in 5 years, but only 5 of them had sold in the last year. How are you supposed to get a trend from that? Well, we've put in a guardrail saying, we don't even want to show you a trend line if there's less than 10 sales because it's not going to be reliable. So we're not even going to show it there. But luckily, we have more than that. We have this entire, that green area, that subject submarket. Those are all properties with similar characteristics selling for similar prices. And we believe that that helps you get to the truth of what's happening in a market. And so we have this 5-year trend line. We have 51 sales. We can limit that and dive deep into the 1-year trend. And if we needed to, we could add in those CS competing submarket properties. But in this case, there's not a lot of green there. I feel really confident in this trend line. If I removed this trend line, the green and the red, you'd probably be able to draw the same one. This seems super reasonable to me, and I feel like you'd be really well supported to put this in your report. Okay, let me pull my slides back up. It's that's here. Move that out of the way. Take a quick drink, sorry. We'll fly through this last part and then we'll get to questions. Okay, I mentioned to you that we are plotting the dots on the chart based on adjusted sale price, not raw sale price. The reason we're doing that, because in testing, we realized that it is a way better approach to analyzing a market. If you can use this GAM model, which can simultaneously look at the difference and figure out the difference between lot sizes and GLA and bed and bath and garage and all those things and adjust these, you can see down here, this is the adjusted sale prices, same data set. This is the first one, this is the second one. You can see the overall trend does not change that much, except for this more recent trend. If we look up here, this trend over the last 6 to 9 months looks like it's increasing slightly. This trend down here is decreasing slightly. I actually did the math behind this to figure out what this would do. And based on these properties that are selling for around $600,000, it would, if you had a comp that sold 6 to 9 months ago, the difference in the adjustment might be $20,000 to $30,000. The indicated sale price of that comp is going to be $20,000 to $30,000 difference between using these two things. And when you adjust for things like what's going on here? Is it going up because that's the true trend, that's the truth of the market, or is it going up because more recently larger homes sold and they sold for higher, clearly because they're larger homes? Well, we're able to adjust for things like larger home distribution of larger homes selling more recently or smaller homes selling more recently or whatever. And so I think this is a super powerful feature for those of you who don't like adjusted sale prices being shown here. We are going to give you the ability in the future to toggle this off so you can actually see both charts and you get to make the decision. Do I want to use raw or do I want to use adjusted? I can tell you from testing, adjusted is way better, but we'll let you make that decision. Heat map, again, so what did that do? It helps illustrate to the reader that you've defined your subject submarket in a data-driven, unbiased manner. It quickly shows you where to look for comps and where not to look for comps. It's going to automatically gather 2 to 5 more times competing properties, which is going to lead to a more credible and reliable trends. And it solves one of your biggest problems. I got 13 sales in the last 12 months and my trend chart is going up, down, up, down, up, down. Not good. That's not reliable. It's not credible and more than likely not accurate as to what's really happening in the market. You need more data. This tool gives you ability not to just get more data, but get better curated data that helps you understand the truth. Okay, recap. What does this tool provide? Data-driven approach to defining our market area and our submarket areas, a way to collect more data, not just more data, relevant, filtered data, trends based on adjusted sale prices, nonlinear trend line and time adjustments for comps, ability to include pending sales to fine-tune the most recent trends, heat maps and charts. So this is just an intuitive way to visualize and analyze the data, and also, almost as important, convey those results to the client so that they're not asking you a bunch of questions and they're confused. And it's super time efficient. Again, less than 5 minutes on average once you get going with this tool. Additional benefits: total integration and PDF export. So that's going to populate the top of page 1 for you, the top of page 2, your 1004 MC. It's going to put the 4 to 6 page PDF report showing the heat map and all of your analysis and your conclusions. It's going to help you complete comp selection for complex properties where you got to go outside of your subject submarket. Where do you go? Where do you look for properties? If you got to use one in a red or a blue, it helps you support what that location adjustment is. ROV defense. Imagine the realtor or the lender sends you a reconsideration of value and they provide you 4 comps and you plot those on a map and you go, oh, these are all in a red area. Of course, the agents provided those, as why didn't I use those? But here's statistical support and deep analysis on why those properties should not be used on this report. And if I do use them on the report, I'm going to adjust them down for location. And then it's also great. It's a great data set to fuel Synapse. So in Synapse, that's our adjustment support tool. We have seen when there are issues with the results, a lot of times it's attributed to the lack of a good data set. Either the appraiser doesn't have a lot of data, or their data set includes $300,000 properties and $2.5 million properties, and the tool's having a hard time figuring out what those adjustments are. Now that you've spent this time up front to curate that really good data set that has a ton of properties in it, we're going to provide you the ability to hit a button, export that. It goes right into Synapse, and you can analyze that. Synapse, we're shooting for April 15th for that. Okay, takeaway. The level of rigor that goes into TrueTracts to analyze a market should give you the confidence you need to utilize the trends and the time adjustments derived and improve the quality and credibility of your report in just minutes. Many high-performing appraisers have already made the switch. The feedback has been wonderful. Super appreciative to the people who've taken the time to send us the feedback. We already have over 3,000 users in our first 30 days of launching. I'm just going to highlight a couple of these. We just got this last week. I didn't get permission, but he shared this in our Facebook group. TrueTracts is the best appraisal product I've added in 20 years. Thank you to WS. And then also the other one I want to highlight is, by the way, I've been using TrueTracts. Was talking to an underwriter who said I had the best market condition report she's ever seen. So it's cool that the underwriters and our clients are loving this as well. We actually had a lender reach out to us. We've been demoing this to AMCs, lenders, GSEs, saying like, hey, here's what we're doing, feedback. And we actually had one lender and AMC reach out to us saying, we want a list of all your people that are using this tool because we want to either create a panel for them or we want to funnel volume to them because this is the type of analysis we want to see. So we're in the process of kind of getting something together to get our users to opt in. We're not just going to share that data without your permission, but we did a poll in our Facebook group and it was like 81% of people said, yes, please share my name and email with that company. I want more volume. So feedback has been wonderful. People have wondered, you guys got 3 tools. I'm confused. I use Spark, but I don't use these other 2, or I use Synapse. Like, what do I do? When do I use which? In my opinion, and I have a video, if you go to our YouTube channel, I have a video of me doing a fake appraisal using all 3 tools, basically to their highest and best use. So if you want to watch that, it's about 30 minutes I walk through. But TrueTracts, I would use that at the very beginning of your process. Define your market, gather the data you need, do your market analysis, time adjustments, and your 1004MC. Do that up front. That way, when you're looking for comps, you know exactly where you should be looking, where you shouldn't. Everybody's had that issue where you search for comps, you grab them, you put 6 comps in, you end up adjusting comp 2 and it adjusts 10% lower. You're like, what the heck's going on here? And you realize like, oh, it crossed a boundary or something. So you end up throwing it out. You got to grab a new one when really it was like a locational issue. This will help you with that. Spark is still the #1 tool to import and export your comps efficiently and accurately. Those of you who haven't seen what Spark does, you simply export your 6 to 10 comps, you drag the CSV file into Spark. In 3 seconds, it's compared everything to public records and MLS and displayed that in a grid, the sales comparison grid for you. You can set up all kinds of settings to make sure the data gets translated exactly how you want it to. You hit a button, it exports it all into total. It's a couple-minute process, saves you 20 minutes of data entry. If you're not using that for that, shame on you, unless you're using something else. There are other people that do it, but we've had people who have switched and came back to Spark. Spark's the best for that. It also does the cost approach for you. It also does market analysis. So if you're already using Spark for market analysis, great, keep using it. I think TrueTracts is 10 times better. That's why we spent the time to build it. But Spark still does a great market analysis as well. And then Synapse is for feature adjustments, GLA, lot size. What are those individual adjustments I make in the grid? Coverage. We cover 47% of the country today. 47% of appraisers should have access today. Another 40 to 45% will have access in March and April. Dallas, we are shooting for potentially Friday of this week, more than likely early next week. That will be shortly followed next week by San Antonio, Houston, and Austin. That will potentially be followed the same week by Chicago. I live in Chicago, or I live just outside of Chicago. I'm dying for it to be in my market. I have to wait like the rest of you guys. So those are the next markets on tap, and we're shooting for next week for those. Click on this. Let's see. This link will get you signed up. Click on coverage areas. Let me just show you what that looks like. Simply click on coverage. We're going to update this as we know more. You simply type in what's a market here. I'll just do my own. I don't think we're live on any markets in here, but Chicago is Cook County. And so coming March of 2025, we will update this as new ones. So you just enter your state, your county, and it will tell you what's going on there. What else? Let me go back here. Support. Let me pull the tool back up. Where is the tool hidden? Over here. Anytime you have a question right here, there's a question mark in the top right. Click that. We have an email to our support line. We have daily office hours. This is super important. I want to spend a second on this. Every day, including today, in 6 minutes, we're going to be jumping to that. And by the way, I'm sorry, I'm talking too long. We're probably not going to get to many questions, but please just click this link and you'll come right into our office hours. So this is just appraisers jumping in and having me, they have a hard problem, that hard appraisal. And they say, can you run this for me and help me guide my boundaries, my filters, show me how you would analyze this market? Or they just like, I'm new to the tool. I don't even know where to start. Will you do one for me? And so we're just doing live examples. I'm sharing my screen and doing that. This is the 1 hour training video. This will walk you through very slowly exactly how to use the tool. By the time you're done watching this 1 hour training, you should feel really comfortable using the tool. Oh, sorry, what else? Office hours in 6 minutes. Facebook group, please join our Facebook group. You can ask questions in there as well. You can post a link to your session and I can, help you out. I'll send you a video helping you through that session. And then please join or check out our YouTube channel. Tons of interesting videos. If you're new to Spark or Synapse, there are videos for all of that walk you through how to use that. Julie, we have, first of all, Julie, did I miss anything that you want me to go back to? And then second, do we have any?
Before we get to questions, I just want to point out, if you want to click on the TrueTracts main page, all the information that Paul is sharing on this slide it's all on this page. So there's links to past webinars. The office hours is over there on the right. So all the information that he shared on his slide, it's pretty much, I don't think there's anything on that slide that's not on this page. So if you don't remember anything else, remember that you can go to this main page and get to all of that information, including the videos.
And then last thing before questions, this is free until June 1st. So you guys still got another 2.5 months of free. So please use it, join office hours, send me your questions. Spark has been the biggest tool in my toolbox over the last 10 years as an appraisal to help me save 20 minutes on every appraisal. Love it to death. Since that, I have not seen an appraisal software that I'm as excited about as TrueTracts. I think it is the absolute foundation for what we want to do going forward in appraisals and utilizing technology for what it does best, but still having us as the appraiser drive the process. This is not an automated process. You can't click a button and it gives you everything. As you saw, I had to control that and I have to have my appraiser brain involved in that process. This is not to replace you, but it's to allow you to do way deeper analysis, way faster, and have a better report that sets you apart from your competition.
Okay, let's see if we can sneak a few questions in here, Paul. So one question I think I saw a couple times, why is it 5 years of data?
Yeah, because we want a lot of data. We have learned that the biggest problem in analyzing any trend or any adjustment, feature or time, you need data. And so we're able to account for, with this GAM model, we're able to account for all of these variables, including time. And so if we can learn from sales that happened 3, 4, 5 years ago, what's going on today and what that tells us about the value of that area and whether that should be red, green, or blue, we can do that. And so it's really cool the way all of the thousands of calculations that are happening in the background But in order to do it and do it reliably, you need data. And so we're going to go back in time and we're going to utilize everything that we can to do that. And plus on appraisals, you might need time adjustments. You're doing a complex assignment. I've done complex assignments. I've had to use a comp from 4 years ago, and this will tell you what that adjustment is. So did I lose my, I didn't show you guys. When you're doing these time adjustments, if I click on 5 years, it's going to show me 5 years of time adjustment. So if I have that comp, I'm doing a log cabin and I don't have any log cabins, but there happened to be one within 20 miles that sold 5 years ago, probably going to use it. And I'm going to have to adjust it 35.5%. So because it sold back here somewhere. All right, we got time for one more, Julie?
Yeah, I think so. So does it work with anything besides total?
It works with all software in the fact that you export a PDF, and that PDF can be used. This is the PDF that you get. So you get this PDF with all this information, the heat map, the charts. All you got to do is attach that to ACI, ClickForms, whatever your software is, and you have all of this deep analysis in your report. It's like a 1-minute process. As far as the 1004MC, top of page 1, top of page 2, what we do is we give you the information. You're just going to have to click those buttons, type those numbers, and type these numbers. Okay, cool. We are at the hour. I got to jump over to office hours. Again, the link's in there. Sign up for the tool. It's in the question mark. We've showed you the link. Please join us. We'd love to have you join our Facebook group. Appreciate you joining. Please reach out with any questions.
Thanks, everyone.